There's a business more profitable than tech, more consistent than real estate, more protected than any industry you can name. And it's been running the same playbook for over 2 centuries. Same families, same formula, different wars. While young men and women die on battlefields, a handful of corporations get obscenely rich every single time. This isn't theory. The paper trail is public. The contracts are documented. The money is real. Let me show you how 5 dynasties built empires worth hundreds of billions on the bodies of soldiers and the backs of taxpayers. Here's what they don't teach you in history class. War isn't just politics. It's not just ideology. It's a business transaction. And the same players have been cashing in since 1802. The DuPonts, explosives and chemicals. The Rockefellers, oil and energy. The Morgans, war financing. Lockheed's ancestors, weapons and aircraft. Halliburton, military infrastructure. 5 names, every American war, from the Revolution to Afghanistan. Track their stock prices across conflicts and you'll see it. A surge with every declaration, and explosion of profit with every contract. And when peace comes, they pocket the money and wait for the next one. Because they didn't just profit from war, they created the conditions that made the next war inevitable. DuPont, the original war profiteers. You know them for Teflon, maybe for chemicals, but the DuPont fortune built on gunpowder and blood. 1802, a French chemist named Eleuthère Irénée DuPont arrives in America. He sees opportunity, a young nation expanding westward, constantly at war. He sets up shop on the Brandywine River in Delaware, strategic location, close to D.C., close to Philly, far enough from cities that when things blow up, nobody important dies. War of 1812. DuPont supplies the military. First major contract. The pattern begins. Mexican-American War, 1846. Over $1 million in contracts, $35 million today. But the real win? They become the government's preferred supplier. When you deliver in one war, you're first in line for the next. Civil War, 1861 to 1865. This is where DuPont becomes a dynasty. 4 years of brutal warfare. The Union needs gunpowder at industrial scale. DuPont's mills run 24/7. They produce over 4 million pounds. Contracts worth over $10 million. That's $300 million in today's money. Here's the dark part. The DuPont family were Northern Democrats. Some opposed abolition. Some even supported the Confederacy politically. But they sold to the Union. Why? Because that's where the money was. Ideology? Irrelevant. Profit? Everything. After the war, they're celebrated as patriots who helped save the nation. The complexity of their position? Forgotten. The profit? Permanent. World War I, 1914 to 1918. This transforms DuPont from millionaires to a dynasty. Before America even enters the war, they're selling to Britain and France millions of pounds of TNT, smokeless powder, explosives. When America joins in 1917, production goes exponential. DuPont supplies 40% of all Allied explosives. Their profits? From $5 million in 1914 to $82 million in 1918. That's over $1 billion today. In 4 years, they increase profits by 1,600%. After the war, they don't give it back. They diversify into chemicals, plastics, synthetics. War money builds a peacetime empire, but they never stop selling to the military. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Every conflict DuPont supplies materials. By the time 2000, their defense division spins off and merges, but the family wealth? Still there. The DuPont Family Trust today, $30 billion. 6 generations removed from Eleuthère, still living off gunpowder profits. The Rockefellers, fueling every war machine. John D. Rockefeller founds Standard Oil in 1870. By 1880, he controls 90% of America's oil refining. Not a business, a monopoly. And when America goes to war, that monopoly becomes a weapon. Spanish-American War, 1898. Small war, big lesson. The Navy transitions from coal to oil. Ships need fuel. Rockefeller supplies it. And he learns control the fuel, control the military. World War I, the first industrial war where oil is everything. Tanks, trucks, airplanes, ships, all need petroleum. Standard Oil, though broken up in 1911, still dominates through its children, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, all Rockefeller-controlled. They supply fuel to America and the Allies, hundreds of millions in contracts. But here's where the Rockefeller strategy gets sinister. They didn't just sell to one side. Standard Oil of New Jersey, Exxon's ancestor, is investigated for trading with Nazi Germany. They shared patents for synthetic rubber with IG Farben, the German chemical giant. This gave Germany technology that prolonged the war. Senator Harry Truman leads the investigation. His committee concludes Standard Oil damaged the war effort, but nobody's prosecuted. Why? The military needs their fuel. The investigation is quietly buried, the contracts continue. Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, every conflict needs oil, and Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron supply it. By the 1970s, the Rockefellers start divesting to avoid scrutiny, but the wealth remains. Rockefeller family fortune today, $11 billion, built on oil sold to armies who burned it fighting wars. The Morgans, war financing as an art form. Wars don't just need weapons and fuel, they need money. And the people who lend that money, they profit regardless of who wins. J.P. Morgan founds his banking empire in the 1770s. By 1900, J.P. Morgan and Company is the most powerful bank in America. Morgan understands something crucial. Governments at war will borrow at any rate. They have no choice. The alternative is losing. World War I. When war breaks out in 1914, America is neutral. But American banks, led by J.P. Morgan, lend money to Britain and France, over $2 billion between 1914 and 1917. That's $50 billion today. The loans buy weapons, food, supplies, much of it from American companies. So American banks lend money to allies who spend it buying from American corporations. The money circulates. The profit sticks to both ends. Here's the critical piece. By 1917, Britain and France owe so much to American banks that their defeat would cause a financial crisis in America. If they lose, they can't repay. American banks collapse. The economy craters. So when President Wilson asks Congress to declare war in April 1917, it's not just about democracy or German aggression. It's about protecting American financial interests. Senator George Norris says it explicitly during the debate. We are going into war on the command of gold. We are about to put the dollar sign on the American flag. He votes against it. Congress votes for it. And J.P. Morgan's loans are secured by American military power. After the war, Morgan profits again. Germany owes reparations. The Allies owe America. Morgan arranges the loans that let Germany pay, which the Allies use to repay American loans. Morgan collects fees at every step. The Dow's Plan and Young Plan, 1924 and 1929, both structured by Morgan bankers, refinance billions in war debt. Morgan collects millions in fees. World War II, same pattern. Morgan banks finance British war purchases. After Pearl Harbor, they underwrite U.S. war bonds and Treasury securities, collecting fees on every issuance. After the war, they reconstruct. The Marshall Plan rebuilding Europe flows through Morgan-connected institutions. Cold War, Korea, Vietnam, every conflict requires financing. Morgan banks, now J.P. Morgan Chase, are always involved, underwriting government debt, financing defense contractors, profiting from interest and fees. The Morgan family today is no longer involved in day-to-day banking, but the wealth remains. $30 billion. Built on lending money for wars, collecting interest while soldiers died paying the cost.
Lockheed Martin, the military aviation complex. The Lockheed brothers, later spelled Lockheed, found their aircraft company in 1912. By World War I, they're building planes for the military. Small contracts, experimental designs. But aviation is the future, and companies that get in early position themselves for a century of profits. World War II, aircraft become decisive. Bombers, fighters, transports, all essential. Lockheed builds the P-38 Lightning, over 10,000 produced. The Hudson bomber, 2,800 plus produced. Contracts worth hundreds of millions. But here's the Lockheed innovation. They don't just build planes, they build relationships with the Pentagon. They hire former military officers as executives. They locate factories in congressional districts where representatives need jobs for constituents. They make themselves politically untouchable. After World War II, the Cold War keeps contracts flowing. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, the C-130 cargo plane, still in use today. Every decade brings new contracts. Lockheed's strategy is always the same. Build good enough products, underestimate costs, get the contract, then come back for more money because the project is more complex than expected. The Pentagon always pays. Why? Because canceling means admitting waste. Example, the C-5 Galaxy transport plane. Initial contract, 1965, $2.1 billion. Actual cost by delivery, $5.3 billion. 150% over budget. Did Lockheed lose money? No. Cost plus contract. They got paid all costs plus guaranteed profit. The Pentagon couldn't cancel. They'd already spent billions, so they paid. Lockheed profited. Congress approved it because the factory employed thousands in Georgia. Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq, every conflict brings Lockheed contracts. By the 1990s, consolidation begins. Lockheed merges with Martin Marietta, 1995, to become Lockheed Martin. Today, the largest defense contractor in the world. $65 billion in revenue 2023, 90% from government contracts. And the pattern continues. The F-35 fighter jet, the most expensive weapons program in history. Original budget, $233 billion. Current estimate, over $1.7 trillion. That's trillion with a T. 7 times over budget. And Lockheed gets paid for every cost overrun. The Pentagon covers it. Why? They can't cancel. Too much invested. Too many jobs at stake. Too many congressional districts dependent on the program. War is declared, Lockheed's stock price rises, contracts awarded, costs overrun, government pays, shareholders profit. Repeat. Halliburton, turning support into billions. Halliburton was founded in 1919 by Earl Halliburton, initially oil services, but the founder understood that infrastructure, whether for oil or military, was lucrative. By World War II, Halliburton is building bases, airfields, ports for the military. The formula is simple. Military needs infrastructure fast. Halliburton has expertise and equipment. They get no-bid contracts because there's no time for competitive bidding. They build the facility. Cost plus contract means they get paid all expenses plus guaranteed profit. They can't lose money. Korea, Halliburton builds bases and infrastructure. Vietnam, bigger. Through subsidiary Brown and Root, they build roads, ports, airfields throughout South Vietnam. Contracts worth billions, awarded without competitive bidding. Why? Political connections. George Brown, founder of Brown and Root, is a major donor to Lyndon Johnson. Johnson's political career is partly funded by Brown. When Johnson becomes president, Brown and Root gets massive Vietnam contracts. Coincidence? Maybe. Pattern? Clear. Gulf War, 1991. Halliburton gets contracts to build facilities in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Secretary of Defense at the time? Dick Cheney. After the war, Cheney leaves government and becomes CEO of Halliburton, 1995. He runs the company until 2000, when he becomes vice president under George W. Bush. Then comes Iraq and Afghanistan. Halliburton, through subsidiary KBR, gets contracts worth over $40 billion. No-bid contracts, cost-plus pricing. They build bases, provide food services, supply fuel, manage logistics. The costs are astronomical. Pentagon inspectors find billions in waste and overcharges. Halliburton billed the government for meals never served, fuel deliveries that never happened, construction never completed. When questioned, Halliburton argues war zones are chaotic and some waste is inevitable. The government agrees, keeps paying. Dick Cheney, as VP, recuses himself from contract decisions involving Halliburton. But his former company gets more contracts during his tenure than any previous period. From 2003 to 2008, Halliburton's government contracts increase by 400%. Their stock price triples. When Cheney leaves office in 2009, he still holds Halliburton stock options worth millions. This is the pattern. Company hires politicians as executives. Those executives build relationships in government. When wars start, those relationships turn into contracts. The profit is shared. Politicians retire wealthy. Companies get richer. Taxpayers pay the bill. Now, let me show you the pattern across all five, because it's not just that they profited, it's how they profited. The same strategy, repeated for 150 years. Step 1. Position before the war. All five companies established themselves as essential before conflict began. DuPont built explosive manufacturing capacity during peacetime. Rockefeller monopolized oil refining. Morgan built banking relationships. Lockheed maintained military contracts between wars. Halliburton built infrastructure expertise. When war started, they were ready. Competitors weren't. Step 2. Get the first contract. Government needs supplies immediately, no time for competitive bidding. The companies already positioned get no-bid contracts. Justification? National security. We can't wait. Once you have the first contract, the next ones are easier. You're the proven supplier. Step 3. Cost-plus pricing. Almost every major war contract from the Civil War onward was cost-plus. The contractor bills the government for all costs plus a guaranteed profit percentage. This removes all risk. If costs overrun, government pays. If the project takes longer, contractor makes more profit. The incentive is to maximize costs, not minimize them. Step 4. Overrun the budget. Every single major weapon system in the last 50 years has come in over budget. F-35, 7 times over. Zumwalt destroyer, 3 times over. Littoral combat ship, 2 times over. This isn't incompetence, it's the business model. Underbid to get the contract, then revise estimates upward. The government can't cancel, they've already invested, so they pay. And the contractor profits from the overrun. Step 5. Hire the regulators. When military officers retire, where do they go? Defense contractors. Generals who approved Lockheed contracts become Lockheed executives. Admirals who oversaw shipbuilding join shipbuilding companies. The revolving door between Pentagon and industry is so established it has a name, and it ensures the people awarding contracts maintain relationships that benefit them later. Step 6. Lobby for more war. This is the darkest part. Defense contractors spend millions lobbying Congress. They donate to campaigns. They fund think tanks that produce research advocating military intervention. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, the American Enterprise Institute, both received funding from defense contractors. Both consistently publish research supporting military action. When Iraq was being debated in 2002, defense contractors funded organizations that produced intelligence reports supporting invasion. They paid for advertisements. They hired former generals to appear on news shows advocating war. When war was approved, those same contractors got billions in contracts. Did they create the Iraq War? No, but they created an environment where war was more likely, and they profited when it happened. Step 7. Diversify the profit. War profits don't stay in weapons. DuPont used explosive profits to build a chemical empire. Rockefeller used oil profits to buy banks and real estate. Morgan used war lending profits to finance peacetime industries. The companies diversify so that even when wars end, the wealth remains, and the families behind these companies become dynasties. Multi-generational wealth built on war. The numbers don't lie. How much profit are we talking about? DuPont, over $50 billion in military contracts since 1802, inflation adjusted. Rockefeller companies, over $100 billion in fuel sales to the military since 1898. Morgan banks, over $75 billion in interest and fees from war financing. Lockheed Martin, over $200 billion in aircraft and systems since 1917. Halliburton, over $60 billion in logistics since 1942.